Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Hump Day to you on this May 14th, 2025. I have all your stories for your rush hour ride home. The big keynote story today will be Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively. A judge has responded to a key motion. We'll get into that, but first, we'll talk Justin Bieber and his breakup from his manager, Scooter Braun. What led to that breakup? It was money. It's always money. And how much money does he owe Scooter Braun? Then we got Theo Von caught at a bar in Nashville putting his hand on a fan's throat. Was the fan asking for it? We'll get into that story. And then a Sundance lawsuit involving Allison Brie and the lesser-known Franco brother, Dave Franco. We'll talk about that. And then Robert De Niro gives a passionate speech at Cannes Film Fest. I'll share that for you. And then a 9/11 first responder goes off on RFK Jr. I'll explain that and all these other stories. So much to get into. It's all happening right now on The Rush. All right, we'd like to start off with a good animal story, and this is a minor league baseball story. An official had to barehand the bat dog's poop. A crappy day at the park, they're calling it. Yeah, I mean, look, this is, you can't blame the dog in this situation, right? It's just a dog being a dog, but, he's rounding the bases. He's working for peanuts or, for dog biscuits. And at this one moment, there he goes. The crowd goes crazy. I'm not even going to show it for you, but the crowd goes nuts here or maybe we will. They go a standing ovation for the guy.
Home.
So there it is. So this is how it works. You get a dog. You get what you pay for, right? You hire a dog to pick up the bats, then the dog drops a log, and now you have to get one of the trainers to pick up after the dog. We've all been there, picking up after our dogs. All right, well, here's an interesting story here. We like to cover what's coming up in the world of movies and cinema. Nick Cage and Christian Bale turn into Raiders legends. It's maddening, they say. That's right. Who's going to play who? We've got Nick Cage playing John Madden and Christian Bale playing Al Davis. So Nick Cage has to put on a couple pounds to play Madden. I hope he plays it in the same character as the character he played in the what's the movie where he had to find the Declaration of Independence? Was it National Treasure? Yeah. Can we have John Madden as National Treasure? What are you doing, John? I'm gonna find the Lombardi Trophy. I don't know. Anyhow, that's a good. But hey, Nick Cage, I love him. Say what you want about Nick Cage. I'll never turn down a Nick Cage movie. He makes bold choices. So we'll have to see as that movie is in the filming stage right now. Well, Justin Bieber breaks up with Scooter Braun over money. Audits show Justin owes Scooter millions. I don't know how you guys feel about Scooter Braun. Of course, Taylor Swift fans don't like him because he bought the masters to her songs. He claims that she was in on it. She claims it was kind of like, taken out from under her. But you gotta say this. It's been a tough couple years for Scooter Braun, right? He spends multiple millions of dollars on Taylor Swift's masters, and what does she decide to do? Re-record them, which I think is a hilarious move. But now we've got Scooter Braun, the manager of Justin Bieber, I guess, being owed money. Have a listen to what TMZ, how they describe it went down.
So AEG, which through the concert, gives Justin a $40 million advance. When Justin cancels the tour, AEG says, hey, yours $24 million. And Justin's like, I don't have the money. And so Scooter's company, Hype, they say, look, we'll assume this debt and we'll pay it off for you, Justin. So Justin then signs a note saying he'll pay Scooter's company that $24 million back over a 10-year period. And he makes one payment. And this is where the conflict starts. So we're told from Scooter's side that Justin's people called and said he doesn't have the money to pay anymore. And he's never paid another payment. Now
And by the way, maybe if you're Justin Bieber, you feel exploited by Scooter Braun. I just looked it up. Scooter Braun is worth $1 billion. This is the world we live in, right? Where the manager for pop talent or for talent usually is worth more than the talent themselves, because then they get themselves into other ventures and he owns the catalog to Taylor Swift and all these other things. So it's, all right. So yeah, sure. I don't know. I don't know what side of this story I'm on, but it's not like Scooter Braun didn't groom, and I don't mean sexually groom, but groom, Justin Bieber into becoming one of the biggest male pop stars of all time, if not the biggest of all time. So either way, he'll be fine. And here's an interesting update. We have Theo Von Comedian grabs fan by throat at Nashville bar. Now, I don't know exactly what started this mess here, but here's a still from it. There's Theo. The guy's clearly bigger. Now, the guy's holding balloons. You never want to get throat punched when you're holding balloons. You're in a very vulnerable state. But my guess is, and I'm not saying he was asking for it, I don't mean to victim blame here, but my intuition is that this guy was being an asshole and didn't listen to Theo when Theo said, back up out of my space. But who knows? Maybe there's more to the story. So if we'll have to see. I mean, if Theo's randomly choking people out without any sort of provocation, then maybe there's a lawsuit there. You can get some of the big bucks that Theo Vaughn has. All right. Well, should we dive right into, I mean, we're just really crushing it with stories right now. Should we dive right into the Blake Lively stuff? Yeah, why not? Let's go for it. So here is this is real breaking news info. I didn't even have my breaking news button ready for this. It's such breaking news info, I wasn't even ready, but here it is, ladies and gentlemen, breaking news info. We have a response by the judge. Now, here's what's crazy, right? You've got Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively. You've got motions up the ass. Not every day. This letter, compel this, object to that, plaintiff, defendant. They're crossfiring. It's insane. So here we have a memorandum in order granting in part and denying in part the motion to compel, granting in part and denying in part the motion to compel, like different multiple things. And to be quite honest, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it, but I'm going to read exactly what the judge had to say. Now, these judges, right, they've got, I'll call them deckhands, right? Can we make everything a below deck metaphor? Can we do that? You know, on below deck, you've got the captain, and then you got the guy who works the deck, and then you got the chef, and you got the people that give all the food, the servers, Well, clearly the judge has multiple people working on this. He has to have people, his legal help to sift through all of this. I used to think it was just a guy in a black robe that would just hit the heck out of the gavel, but there's clearly more here. So I want to share, starting at page 3, what the judge ruled. So Justin Baldoni is the Wayfair parties, right? Amongst other people. The Wayfair parties are seeking substantial economic damages, in this case, from Lively's alleged tortious conduct. So the judge in their department here does a good job of sort of explaining it all in a couple paragraphs. The Lively parties have cost the Wayfair parties their file, their reputation, their future prospects, even their talent agency, alleging that as a result of the tortious conduct of the Lively parties, the Wayfair parties have suffered loss of income and interference with future income. And of course, obviously there's interference with future income. That's called getting blackballed. And that Baldoni, Heath, Nathan, Abel, and Sarowitz sustained harm included to their business and professions. So their prayer for relief seeking a money judgment representing compensatory damages, including consequential damages, lost wages, earnings, and all other sums of money together with interest on those amounts in an amount to be proven at trial, but in no event less than $400 million. Documents sufficient to show the net worth of each of the Wayfair parties, including financial statements, assets, and liabilities, and for the corporate entities, financial statements, year-end balance statements, and documents sufficient to show gross income, net income, and expenditures are relevant and should be produced. So what they're saying is, you should produce the assets, liabilities, and all of the information. What he's about to share, though, is that doesn't mean you get tax papers, because tax papers will share information that might not be needed here. I'm going to read the rest of this letter from the judge in this motion. People are saying, because the internet breaks it down a lot faster than I do, that this is a win for Blake Lively. I'd love to know in the comment sections what you guys think. Let's do this. Going to take a quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back to read the rest of this motion from the judge. Today's podcast is sponsored by Ancient Nutrition. For over 1,000 years, explorers the world over searched for and told tales of a mythical fountain said to restore one's youth and cure anything. Newsflash, it was never found. But hey, we do have collagen. While it's not a miracle, it is proven to be pretty darn good at helping you look and feel younger and more healthy. What's the best collagen, you ask? Well, it's made by Ancient Nutrition, of course. This formula is powered by clinically studied ingredients that promote fat loss and healthy weight management, as well as building lean muscle. Collagen can also reduce joint discomfort and improve the look and growth of your skin, hair, and nails. You know me, I'm a hair guy. Turning 40, I'm fighting father time. One scoop in the morning with a smoothie, that's all it takes. Right now, Ancient Nutrition is offering 25% off your first order when you go to ancientnutrition.com/rush hour. That's ancientnutrition.com/rush hour for 25% off your first order. ancientnutrition.com/rush hour. Now, before I get back to this Blake Lively letter, I do want to shout out the Patreon for their comment section. As we're talking about Nicolas Cage playing John Madden, Bruce from Oregon shared what might come from the dialogue. When the Bears defense lines up in a zone defense, that means we need to decode the letters underneath the Liberty Bell. But first, some turducken. So yeah, that's a good combination there, of course, involving John Madden and the national, the Declaration of Independence. And for all other Declaration of Independence news, we have always a chance to promote our friends at the National Treasure Hunt podcast. Of course, we've had them on our channel and vice versa, I believe. Go check this out. Aubrey Paris, inspired by liberal arts backgrounds, former college roommates, scientists, and hosts Aubrey Paris and Emily Black incorporate an interdisciplinary lens into every aspect of the Nth experience. So there it is, National Treasure Hunt. And I've been promised a private tour. So if we do go to DC to do some stand-up comedy shows, Aubrey says she'll give us a tour of the National Treasure, a full National Treasure Hunt by hers truly. So anyway, go check that out. I'm rambling now, so let's get back into it. So here we have Justin Baldoni, and here's the response from the judge as to rejecting the search for tax returns. Because again, tax returns is pretty invasive. As we know, our own president of the United States never wanted to reveal his tax returns. They're coming next week. I'll bundle the tax returns with the proposed healthcare plan. I've got concepts of a healthcare and concepts of a tax return. Blake Lively has not shown an entitlement to the tax returns of the Wayfair parties. Due to the private nature of the sensitive information contained therein, and in part from the public interest in encouraging the filing by taxpayers of complete and accurate returns, courts have long been reluctant to order discovery of tax returns. Yeah, so essentially what they're saying is we want people to be truthful and forthcoming in their tax returns, and we want to protect their what they share in there. And the judge here sides with Blake, like, hey, yeah, you're gonna be able to get all of their assets in that. And Baldoni's side has said, well, we were gonna provide that already. We just don't have to provide that yet. So then he shares the case law here. A party seeking to compel production of tax returns in civil cases must meet a two-part showing, and then he gets into all of that. Lively's motion to compel is accordingly granted in part and denied in part. The Wayfair parties shall produce the documents responsive, directed to Abel and Nathan, directed to Baldoni, Heath and Sarowitz, and directed to Tag. So all the different people in this umbrella lawsuit, except tax returns by no later than May 28th. The request for tax returns and the motion to compel documents responsive without prejudice, the court awards cost to neither side. The clerk of court is respectfully directed to close the motion. So there it is, the judge ruling in part for Blake Lively, but she got what they were already going to have to show. Like if you're suing for damages, you always have to show what those damages are. It's still a big update in the ongoing trial here. I don't know about you guys. I've learned a lot about law in the last couple of years just following all of these pre-trial motions that are going on. But let's move it on from here. We're going to go to several stories of the political variety. But first, here we have ex-wife of Bill Gates explaining why billionaires should not exist.
And so in your perspective, there is this moral responsibility for billionaires in this day and age.
Look, if you're a billionaire, let's just say if you're a billionaire in the United States, you benefited from this country. You benefited from good roads. You probably benefited somewhere along the way from the health sector, I hope. You probably benefited because maybe it was a good business climate and you could start your business, right? People in other places don't have those things. And so, yes, we owe something back to society. And there are lots of ways to do it. You don't have to do it in any one way. But sure, we were lucky. Like to grow up in this country versus growing up somewhere like Niger, where I've been. Go try to start a business in Niger. Go try to have a child in Niger. Women absolutely do it, but are they attended by a trained, skilled birth attendant? Not very often.
Yeah, I look at it this way, right? If you're a billionaire, and let's say you're a farmer and you live with all these other farmers, right? And you all have your farms, but the sun just hits your land a little bit better. You've got some sun privilege and you're able to produce all of this amazing food. You've pulled it out of the ground, but none of the farmers near you are getting any amount of that food. You would have to be an absolute psychopath to not dole it out. Now, I'm not speaking from a communist point of view where every amount of dollar you earn should get divided equally, but I think a lot of folks out there have a hard time understanding how much a billion is. It is 1,000 millions. Most of us don't have $1 million. Most of us don't have $400. And by that, we should look at billionaires, and some people say they should be taxed 100%. Once you've made over $999 million, you get taxed on the rest, and it goes to programs that can help other people. Now, I wouldn't love her comparison to say, oh, well, we've got great roads. We could have better roads. Like, there's a lot we could have. But if we were aggressively taxing those that made a crazy amount of money, I don't think that would force them to other countries to dodge taxes. I'd say, look, you're in our country, and we need to find a way to share a lot of that wealth. They can't possibly spend it all. They can't possibly spend it all. Now you've got people in the hundreds of billions of dollars, and we shouldn't trust what Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk does with their money. We shouldn't trust it because they'd rather, in some cases, shoot dick-shaped rockets into Mars than feed the hungry in our own country, fix the lead pipes in Detroit, and do all of these other projects that can make everybody's life better. So on the sort of like very insulated level, none of us, no one in my audience would gather all this wealth and not pass a little bit around to their family. And that's the idea with taxing people at a higher level is, sure, pass it around. You've earned a little bit extra than everyone, a lot extra than everybody else, and you can't possibly spend it all. And you also can't be trusted to divide it up in a way that makes sense. But then people will say, well, the government's so inefficient that they can't be trusted too. I say this, tax the ultra wealthy at a much higher level and put in a lot of safeguards to make sure the way it's spent is audited in a fair and just way. How about you can do both? Well, here we have Joe Biden back in the news. Who? The former president. Well, George Clooney says the reason he spoke out against Joe Biden running for another term is because they were at an event together and President Biden didn't even recognize George Clooney. And look, we all recognize George Clooney, but they were close friends. George Clooney is one of the most recognizable people. And when Joe Biden didn't know who he was, that's when he knew there was a problem. Again, this is all information coming out in this new book, Original Sin by Jake Tapper, which I suggest nobody buys the book because I think it's kind of just a rotten time to write a book about the president when he was part of the media that really didn't raise alarms about the president until it was far too late. So anyhow, well, speaking of presidents, here we have a advocate against the current president, Robert De Niro, sharing a message about tariff policies. He did this while speaking at Cannes Film Festival in Cannes, France.
In my country, we're fighting like hell for the democracy we once took for granted. And that affects all of us. That affects all of us here because the arts are democratic. Art is inclusive. It brings people together. Like tonight, art looks for truth. Art embraces diversity. And that's why art is a threat. That's why we are a threat to autocrats and fascists.
So there it is, and then he keeps on going. But look, I couldn't agree more with him, right? Art is an expression. Art exposes, right? Because in a lot of ways, whether it's stand-up comedy or art exhibits or movies, television, it shines light on absurdities that exist out there. You have to remember, speaking of art, it wasn't until a comedian, Hannibal Buress, spoke out about Bill Cosby that really initiated the Me Too movement, right? That he spoke out at a live stand-up show about the atrocities going on. Even though people knew about them for a long time, his speaking out in the way that he did was able to really start this momentous movement that has really reached every edge of the earth at this point. So let's move it on. Here we have 9/11 first responder calling out RFK Jr. We've covered this story before, but he's an advocate for those that were injured. Now, the people that were first responders on 9/11 have such an insane high level of cancer, not just cancer risk. At this point, they pretty much all got cancer. You can't say everybody, but the majority of people that were working, that the heroes that were the first responders are very sick. And now the organization that was created to protect them has cut a lot of the administration. And here is the response from this hero at the podium.
The secretary is disingenuous. The secretary is uniquely unqualified to hold any government position.
RFK Jr., that is.
But what are we doing today? Are we talking about a bill we've been walking the halls of Congress to get passed that they took off the table in December? Are we talking about Dr. Howard losing his job and the 15 doctors being fired? Are we talking about restoring NIOSH? What are we here for? This is 20 years of bullshit that you guys keep putting in front of us that we have to fight. Nobody apologized after 9/11. Nobody. Nobody said sorry for making him sick, her sick, him sick. Instead, we created the World Trade Center Health Program. That was their apology. Create the World Trade Center Health Program, give them free care, health care, then make us walk the halls of Congress and get it extended to 2090.
They basically made these heroes beg. They made them beg for health care. I want to live in a country where health care is guaranteed to every fucking person that exists in our country. We have the funds. Instead, we're finding ways to gut the health care that we do have to pay for the tax cuts to the ultra wealthy. Where is the humanity in that? Where is the humanity in making our goddamn American heroes come beg so that they can fight the cancer they already have from being first responders in one of the greatest terror attacks in our country? And we don't need to nickel and dime them. We need to make sure everybody is covered. And I won't for 1 second stand by the idea that we can't afford it. We're okay with the floating palaces, and we're okay bombing other countries, even subsidizing healthcare for other countries. And we can't take care of the men and women that put their lives at risk to save lives. I mean, this is not a partisan issue. And this is the issue that Jon Stewart stood up for and actually helped them get these bills passed, which is why he would be such a no-brainer for president, because he has walked the walk. Jon Stewart didn't have, concepts of healthcare plans. He went to Congress, he used his voice, and he spoke out for these heroes, and he got them the help they needed, help that is now being gutted. All right, Gnome is calling out members of Congress for the horrible behavior at the ICE facility in New Jersey. I want to share what she has to say with a quick response.
There were members of this very committee that took part in an action at Delaney Hall on May 9th that need to be addressed. I served as a member of Congress in this body for 8 years, and I understand the importance of congressional oversight. What happened on May 9th was not oversight. It was a political stunt that put the safety of our law enforcement officers, our agents, our staff, and our detainees at risk.
So she calls it a political stunt, and they're kind of equating it, and a lot of people are equating this to the January 6th insurrection. Now, Gnome is bad news. She talks about political stunts, right? But she's the first person to put on her Barbie hat, to go cosplay as an ICE official. She wears these guns. Even Republicans like Megyn Kelly call her out for it. She goes down to El Salvador to get photos in front of the bad men, and she's absolutely doing all of the propaganda work for the government. But here's what the other side says went down at this ICE detention center where the New Jersey mayor from Newark was arrested. Trump administration Homeland Security officials were responsible for starting the confrontation on Friday at a New Jersey immigration jail that led to the arrest of Newark's mayor, as well as threats to detain 3 members of Congress, representatives said Sunday on CNN's State of the Union. The Democratic reps Bonnie Watson-Coleman, LaMonica McIver, and Rob Menendez, all of New Jersey, visited the controversial Immigration and Customs Enforcement Detention Center known as Delaney Hall on Friday to inspect the facility. As they waited to enter Delaney Hall, Newark's mayor, Baraka, arrived, and as he left the property, he was arrested outside by ICE officials accusing him of trespassing, leading to a commotion at the entrance of the jail. So he says he was invited on, they walked him in, and then they said, you got to go, and then they arrested him. Was he lured in? Was he barging through, breaking windows to get in? No, there was an opening, there was a door where the chain link is, and he walked in. Then he walked out and he got arrested. There evidently was shoving and pushing between federal immigration officials and the members of Congress, which Watson, Coleman, McIver, and Menendez blamed on the immigration officials. So we've already shared this with you guys, but this is what they're kind of equating to like a January 6th level demonstration by the Democratic Party. And a lot of people believe what the Trump administration is trying to illustrate here is very racial at its core, which is to say, here's a bunch of black people yelling. See, they're not operating with the respect and they're not going through protocol and it's a protest, which clearly wasn't the case if you watch from the beginning. This all went down as they were arresting the mayor and the representatives were literally, the commotion. It was an absolute scrum here. And people are just trying to see what's going on in the detention facility to make sure that there are human rights, there's human rights concerns. Who's in there? What are the conditions like? And all of that. Again, in New Jersey, in the United States of America. So that's where this all took place. This wasn't like a giant protest with, hundreds of people all showing up. It was just the representatives doing their job. And then we have Kristi Gnome here essentially rewriting history to show, no, look, see, they're the bad guys. They're the ones operating inappropriately when they just want to show their their constituents where their tax dollars are going. It's scary indeed to see this play out, even with our own two eyes, even with body cam footage, even as people recall what exactly happened there, to think that one side of the aisle is going to see this as some violent insurrection where the mayor is just, as the manager and the boss of his city is trying to find out what the hell is going on in his backyard. Well, there are your updates for the day, folks. I know it's a lot going on out there, but we're trying to have our eyes on all of it. And not an easy task, but I appreciate you guys sticking around. Leave a comment, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks to all the people that have followed us on TikTok and Instagram. The channels are growing a bunch. You can leave comments over there and continue to share us with your friends. We appreciate all that growth. We'll see you in the morning. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.